Hello viewers from wherever you're watching us from. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we are broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is CEESAY, and it's now time for your weekly State of Affairs program. Well, our guest tonight is one of the most influential voices in President Barrow's government. Before entering politics, Dr. ISMAILA has built a reputation as an academic, analyst, and public commentator who frequently challenged those in power to be transparent, more accountable, and more responsive to the public. Today, he occupies a different position. As Minister of Information, he's not only responsible for government communication, but has become one of the president's most visible defenders during some of the administration's most difficult moments. Doctor, good to have you on the State of Affairs program again.
Good evening, and it's good to be back.
Yeah? Like I said, before joining government, you regularly challenge those in power. Looking back today, has the government met the standards you once demanded from public officials?
Of course, that is why I'm still in government. That is why I still have enormous trust and confidence in the president and his leadership in having the vision to transform this country into a middle-income country.
So what has been the biggest surprise about being inside government rather than analyzing it from outside as it was when you were?
I wouldn't say a surprise. I would say the biggest education is that you now see things from close within. You now understand issues of bureaucracy, issues of governance, and the challenges in government, and all the processes that go with it. When you are outside, you don't see things from inside. You act based on perception, how you perceive things to be, and how things really are totally different. And that is what we call the descriptive and the normative. The descriptive is how things really are. The normative is how things should be. Outside government, you are idealistic, how things should be. But inside government, how things really are. The reality is different from how things should be. It's like a mirage. When you're outside, what you think you see, and you analyze, you profile solutions based on perception, based on what you think is happening. Unfortunately, and I think I was also one of the victims of that, as political analysts in this country, we don't engage government to know exactly what is happening. And our assumptions are based on perceptions that we think things are going through without knowing exactly how things are. Now, when you enter government, you see things from a very different point of view. Now, things are the reality, how things really are. And that changes your perception about how government is. That changes your perception about how government works.
So, I mean, like you said, I mean, you've repeatedly described, I mean, the current Barrow's government as among the most transparent in Gambian history. But why do many Gambians still, seem unconvinced, the likes of Uncle Madi Jobate and others? Why?
If you say many Gambians, you cannot name me one person. It's just one person out of 2.5 million Gambians. Many Gambians perceive the Barrow government as the most transparent, and that is the feedback we get. So for me, one person's views about this government, a person who is conflicted, a person who is politically conflicted, cannot really be an influential voice that speaks for every Gambian. We have 2.5 million Gambians, and the feedback we have, in fact, based on recent surveys, it shows this government is more open than any other government in the history of this country. That is a fact. This is empirical evidence. This is empirical data.
So Doc, let's clarify your role here. Just make me understand. Are you primarily the information minister, the government spokesperson, or the president's chief defender?
Well, I'm the information minister, and information minister is responsible for public information. How that public information is conveyed to the public, is disseminated, is my responsibility. And then as a ministry, our mandate is to ensure we give what they call proactive disclosure of public information. Like how the Minister of Health is responsible for public health. The Minister of Basic Education responsible for public education. I'm responsible for public information. And in the Constitution, every Gambian is guaranteed a right to access information. And that is my role as a minister, to ensure that every Gambian has access to public information in a proactive manner, information which is relevant, which is authentic, which is truthful. And that is what we do as a ministry. So I'm not a defender of obviously, I defend the Republic. I defend the president, who is the head of the Republic. I have to make sure that anything that will bring disrepute to the presidency is defended, particularly if it is misinformation. That is my role as a Minister for Information, and to ensure the public gets accurate, timely, relevant, authentic information. Information which is public information, which we think is a public good, and it is their right to get that information so they can make informed choices. This is the cornerstone for every democrat.
You just mentioned, I mean, your role in trying to defend the image of the president. Many are struggling to distinguish your role and that of the director of press and public relations at the office of the president. Where does your mandate ends and where does hers begin?
No, I mean, obviously, she is responsible for the office of the president. Okay. I'm Minister for Information for every aspect of government, okay, from all MDAs, broadly speaking. Okay. So our mandates complement each other. They don't duplicate or override each other. They complement each other. She's director of press, office of the president. Her role is limited to the presidency. My role is more expansive. I make sure that I'm responsible for policies and regulations that are about public information. So my mandate is broader. So how do you respond to those who said, I mean, Dr. ISMAILA CEESAY has now overstepped his mandate from just being a policy maker and all those things. He has now transformed himself into even a content creator. Something that people believe, well, I mean, you have, of course, GRTS, the Gambia Daily, I mean, and other media houses that should do this, but you have now transformed yourself into even a content creator. What content have I created? Well, what content have I created as a minister? Let me know what content have I created. Then I can tell you why that content was created. What content have I created? I'm not aware of me creating any content as a minister. That is not my role. We have Department of Information Services, which is the technical arm of the ministry. We have GRTS as an agency within the ministry. I'm not aware of me creating any content. What we are doing is to make sure that we promote the agenda of the government. We popularize the programs of this government and the initiatives of this government. If we can do that as a ministry using our technical arms, we can do it. But I'm not aware of me creating any content.
So is it true also that your ministry is also functioning as a political communications for the NPP? At some point, there was this particular moment that you posted a press release from the NPP. Why?
Well, if at one point in time we release a press release from the NPP, how can that be a judgment that we're political communications for the NPP? How many press releases has NPP published over the past years? We published one, it has to do with the repetition of the president. It was a statement which was sent out to make sure that somebody was trying to bring the presidency into disrepute, and I think it is important that we clear that. The NPP has released thousands of press releases over the past year. Did the ministry publish anyone? No, only one, because it has to do directly with the president. And like I said, as a ministry, one of our mandate is to protect and defend the integrity of the presidency, and we'll do that.
What's the role of the government spokesperson?
Well, I think it's important if you call the government spokesperson to this platform and you ask him his role.
I want to know, because you are doing most of his work.
Well, like I said, I'm Minister of Information. I can speak for myself. I cannot speak for somebody else's role. I mean, it's important if you invite him to this platform, ask him for his role. My role as minister is to ensure that I come up with policies and programs that can promote public information to the public in a timely, accurate, authentic, in a timely and accurate manner. Information which is truthful and authentic to the public, to make sure that the public's right to access information in a proactive manner is promoted. Now, what somebody else's role is, I think it's important for them to answer the question on their own.
What's your response to those who said, I mean, your ministry's credibility is always questioned anytime you say something or there's a press release from your office? How do you deal with that?
Well, like I said, millions of Gambians believe in the ministry and its agencies as one of the most important platforms to give public information. What one of two or three critics think really doesn't bother us.
Why?
Because it doesn't bother us because they're politically conflicted. I mean, even if we cough, they have an issue with it. We know who they are. We know they're politically conflicted. We know their agenda, so it doesn't bother us.
Do you have any evidence to that?
What is important for us?
Do you have any evidence to that?
No, what is important for us is that the public relies on the state media and the ministry for public information, and the public trust our information. That is what is important.
Let's now look at the most pressing issue as we speak, the power outages. I'm not sure whether you are affected. Are you in any way affected?
Of course, every Gambian is. Most Gambians are affected.
Okay, I mean, you say the current crisis is due to what you call decades of underinvestment. But the government of Adama Barrow has been in office since 2017. After nearly 9 years in power, why are we still experiencing these power outages?
Look, we're not experiencing power outages as a systematic problem. It's not systematic. Sorry, it is not systemic, rather. Not systemic in the sense that for the past 2 years or for the past 4 or 5 years, we've been experiencing power outages. This problem was basically resolved. We've invested a lot in the energy sector since President Barrow came to power. We've invested in new transformers, invested in the grid, in the T&D grid, so that we've invested in high voltage infrastructure to ensure that Gambians have electricity. And I think we have the roadmap has 2 solutions. In the short term is to buy electricity from the West Africa power pool, which is cheaper for us and more reliable. In the long term is to make sure we do our green transition,
also
to build our solar power plants and other sources of green energy. And that's what we are doing, and the roadmap is going well. Now, if in the interim, as part of our short-term measures, is to buy energy from the West Africa power pool, which is cheaper and reliable, that's a technical issue. Really, this is something that we have to contend with and try to find a solution as soon as possible. But our long-term roadmap, our medium to long-term roadmap, is to make sure that we are energy self-sufficient by building fulfilling our green transition. That is why we are currently working on starting to build our 50 megawatts solar power plant in Soma, which will be scaled up to 150 megawatts in the same place. That is why in Jambu we have 23 megawatts. So obviously, with all those investments done also to ensure that our current megawatts capacity in terms of our generators in Kutu and Brikama, we do the right maintenances, put the right spare parts so that they are also up and running. If all these things come into fruition, we'll have surplus power even to sell outside to the Gambia.
But before then, with all the investment that you've said the government has done, what is the cost of the current situation that we are in?
Now, what we are telling you is that we've done expansive investments in the energy sector to make sure that we've done what no other West African country has done, that is provide 90% of our population with access to electricity. Now, that is a huge investment. Countries with bigger resources are not able to achieve.
But access without generation at the
moment.
No,
what I'm saying is the generation problem is not systemic. These are short-term hiccups that we have, and we are working on solving them. Like I said, energy is a very complex, business, and I think people should understand how it works. Unfortunately, many people who comment don't understand the energy sector, how it works. What is happening is a short-term hiccup. It's a technical problem that we are having, and we are trying to solve it as soon as possible. And we'll solve it as soon as possible. No government, particularly the government of Adama Barrow, does not want any Gambian to sleep in the dark. That is why we have done all these investments. And remember, since 1965, the investment that have been done in the energy sector cannot be matched what we've done in the past 7-8 years, just to make sure that Gambians have stable, cheap, reliable energy. Now, if
Doctor, what is the current state of our generators on the NAWEC as we speak?
The generators, one of them is up and running. I think it's about 10 megawatts. They've just finished working on that, I think, 2 days ago. That is why I've seen a change in the load shedding period.
Which one of them?
Now, I'm not sure which one, but I know that one of them is up and running yesterday or 2 days ago. That's up and running. What we are waiting for, remember, some of our generators are old generators, and getting spare parts are difficult. We are working on making sure that we renovate and rehabilitate these generators so that they can start running. That work is on progress. Very soon they'll be up and running. And also we are also working on the 50 megawatts solar energy in summer as well.
Doctor, it's understandable to say, okay, 1 or 2 generators are down because of spare parts problem. But I just can't understand, before this crisis happened, at Kotu Power Station, G5, G6, G7, G8, and G9 were all not producing power. G5 was operational, but it developed a sense of fault. G7, as I understand, is under major overhaul. G6 has been reported out of service for more than 2 years. You go to Brikama Power Station, only G1 is currently operational. G2 is under maintenance. You go to Brikama Power Station 2, only one, that's the Wasila engine, is operational. Brikama Power Station 2 contains 2-man engines. Neither is currently operating. How do you justify that? 1 or 2 is understandable, but having all this one down, Doctor.
But remember, these generators are not new generators, Aliu. You know that. Like I said, these are inherited generators. These are inherited machines that we inherit from the past government. And the past government, you cannot tell me that these machines were working before Barrow came to power, and that Barrow came, they all stopped working.
But why has it taken us all these years to make sure these generators are up and running?
It's a technical issue which I cannot answer. I don't have the competence.
Technical issue for almost 9 years now?
No, what I'm saying is that the questions you are asking are technical answers which I cannot, why they are not running. These are best answered by NAWEC because they understand how these machines work. What I can tell you is the government's policy is that to make sure every Gambian has access to electricity, and we've been doing that. And now, like I said, for the past 2 to 3 years, we've really stabilized the situation, and no Gambian has been complaining about this. Now, for the past 2 weeks, there has been a technical issue that we are contending it and we are trying to solve it. And the president has said it, that we are working hard day and night to make sure this problem is resolved so that we can move on. And that NAWEC has apologized to the Gambian people that this is something which was unforeseen and not anticipated. It wasn't expected. Everything was going fine in the past 2 years. I think if we have a hiccup in the past 2 weeks, even a human being, sometimes you can get sick unexpectedly. And if you get sick, you have to contend with it. And when you get sick, there is no timing. And people are asking, the timing is poor. Sometimes you get sick 2 days before Tobaski and you cannot enjoy your Tobaski. What we are saying is that we apologize for this inconvenience. We are working hard to make sure we restore power as it used to be before. It's not a systemic problem. If, for example, for the past 2 years, there has not been any electricity in this country, it's been on and off, you can say, but it's been stabilized. Everything was going fine. That's a technical issue and that we are solving. So I think Gambians should be
like you said, like you claim, some of this thing is inherited from the previous government. But at what point does responsibility shift from the previous government to the current government?
No, what I'm saying is government is a continuity. And remember, energy investments are long-term capital-intensive investments. And energy has different components. It has generation, it has T&D, it has the transformers, it has so many things. And I think it will be very unfair to this government to just really summarize the government's performance in the energy sector based on the past 2 weeks of hiccups that we have and which are due to technical issues. It will be unfair. Let's look at the broader picture and the context here. 90% of the population from 65 to 90% have been put into the grid. They have access to electricity. And this problem, remember, even though we don't like to see it, it's limited to the urban areas. Rural areas don't have these problems. It is limited to the urban areas.
Yeah, but I spoke to someone this morning from Basse who told me since yesterday night they didn't have electricity until this morning.
Then maybe perhaps that particular area has a technical issue. But the broader, and Naweka has said this broader scope is that rural areas are not mostly affected by this technical hiccup. It's only the urban areas that are affected by this hiccup, and it's not like it's total blackout. Load shedding is taking place. There are countries in the sub-region that you go for 1 week and even see electricity. At least we have some electricity.
Which country?
I cannot name countries, but what I'm telling you is that I've traveled in the sub-region. Gambia is doing far more, even with our technical...
But you still know if you have travel experience,
even with our...
You should tell us a country where they're saying 2 weeks or 1 week.
I wouldn't go into specific country. What I'm telling you is that even with our load shedding timetable we have, we are better than many countries in the sub-region today. And I saw an OMVG statement today saying that the problem that Gambia is facing is not unique to the Gambia. Most countries in the region, particularly within the OMVG framework, are facing severe problems and are also resorting to load shedding. These are problems that we must contend with. Look, it has also to do with the global environment. We all know what's happening globally in the world. Oil prices has gone up. There are shocks, energy shocks going on in the world. Most countries are struggling with these things. I think these are periods that we should come together as Gambians, understand that this is a common challenge that we have and not politicize the issue.
At some point, the president once stated that the Gambia has excess electricity capacity. What happens to the excess that we have to suffer this?
Well, like I said, there are periods where we have surplus, and he said that sometimes when we have surplus, we sell. Because the energy market, like I said, Senegal buys from us.
Which part of Senegal?
No, I mean, like I said, there are areas in Senegal which are closer to Gambia. Sometimes when we have surplus during the day, when things were going well, we normally, I mean, like I said, these are questions for that now. These are specifics that now. What I can tell you, broadly speaking, is that the energy sector works in a manner in which you do import and export. We are not saying that we do extensive wholesale of electricity, no, but sometimes, in some periods, during some periods, when we have surplus during the day, sometimes we normally swap. It's called the swap. There's a West African power pool, and countries normally swap, depending on convenience and ease and what works. And at the end of the day, you balance the books and then pay each other. And the Gambia has been doing this with Senegal.
Doc, before you cross carpet to government, I mean, you have always emphasized the need for national sovereignty, independence. You have always talked about the issue of security, the need for a country to be sovereign as far as energy is concerned. From what we have experienced, we know as we speak, we're importing power from Senegal and of course the OMVG. What is that key lesson you think we should learn from this as far as sovereignty?
All countries, most countries in the world, you see, energy is not politics. You cannot play politics with energy. Botswana buys energy from South Africa. America buys from Canada sometimes. Even the EU countries buy from each other. This is how it works. It's about sometimes.
Any idea how many percentage they are buying from outside?
What I'm telling you is that, look, the global economy is such that now there's what they call comparative advantage. If a particular country can produce it cheaper than you, because they have the resources to produce, they have either coal or gas, and they produce it cheaper than you, Ghana, they normally sell to Burkina Faso sometimes. What's happening is that if a particular country can produce it cheaper than you, it's nothing wrong with buying from them. That is why we are creating West Africa Power Pool, so that countries can exchange electricity. It's normal. It's just like international trade. If, for example, today, this water, I'm coming. If Senegal can produce this water cheaper than Gambia today, I'm coming. Than Gambia today, because they have the resources to produce it cheaper than us. We have to trade with them to buy it from them. Why do we produce it? So that is what is happening. That is the logic. The logic is that in the short term, it is cheaper for us to buy from Senegal and Guinea because it's cheaper and more reliable. That is what we, in the long term, we are going to make sure that we go energy secure. We are going to build our solar power plants and fulfill our green transition. But in the short term, we are buying from them because we think it was reliable and cheap. If there's a technical issue which is unforeseen, really, nobody can do anything about that.
But don't you think also it's safer as a country, as an independent nation, that we are able to produce at least 75% of our energy need?
But since the president came to power, we've added 50 megawatts into the grid. You know that, since President Barrow came to power. And like I said, Gambia is not a resource-rich country that can just embark in these capital-intensive projects. And remember, look, as a country, no resources that we are aware of, strategic resources, no gold, no diamond, no bauxite, no rutile, no petrol, nothing. Yeah? We're able to embark on an explosive.
But we can use innovative means.
No, I'm coming.
But we can use innovative means, as the president will always say.
In fact, those innovative means, that is why today, as a country, in every sector we are moving, our investments in agriculture are unmatched for the past, since independence. Our investments in road construction are unmatched. For 60 years, they are able to build only 800 kilometers of roads, both primary and secondary roads. For 7 years, President Barrow has built over 1,500 kilometers of roads, and adding another 1,500 onto the road network. In education, we've built over 6,000 classrooms. On average, we are building 11 classrooms a week. On healthcare, the amount of hospitals and healthcare centers we've built, the amount of equipment and nurses and doctors we've trained are unmatched.
But
I'm coming. On youth empowerment, women empowerment, all these things happening at the same time.
All that granted. When can Gambians realistically expect a reliable and stable power supply?
Like I said, NAWEC is a technical issue. NAWEC has given the 15th as the timeline, as the tentative timeline that at least things will be back. We've seen some improvement from yesterday because I think one of the machines are up and running. And I think by the end of the month, everything should be back up and running. But NAWEC has given the 15th, but it's a technical issue, because like I said.
But it's quite worrying, Doctor. For example, you compare a company like the Q Group, as big as it is. If there was no alternative source of power, how will you expect an establishment like here to operate?
It's beyond our control. We don't want this to happen. Like I said, as a government, it's a wish that every government should have. That is why we've done these enormous investments in this sector. That is why we've ensured that every government has access, 90% access. The most remote villages for 100 years, they never had electricity to the electricity.
Which villages?
There are many villages. I mean, from your village, you know, I saw you wrote on Facebook thanking the president for bringing power to your village. So what I'm saying is that, look, our wish as a government is to make sure that every government has access to uninterrupted, clean energy. But listen, technical problems are technical problems.
Before we move to the next agenda, or as far as this discussion is concerned, I mean, what is your response to critics who say any leader who cannot fix a system in 10 years cannot continue to lead us?
But we fixed the system. It's a technical problem. It's not systemic. Nobody can tell me we have not fixed the electricity crisis in this country. In 2017, there was the federal movement coming out to protest because the situations were that bad. Now, when was the last time people complained about electricity in this country?
What's your message to Gala? They have planned a protest on the 19th of this month if the situation is not addressed.
Well, I think, like I said, every citizen has a right to come and express your views about the country, either pleasantly or unpleasantly. They are citizens. They have a right to express their views. What is important for us as a government is to deliver to the Gambian people, and that is what we are focusing on.
So the police allow them to go on with the protest?
What did you say?
So the IGP allow them to go on?
That's an operational issue. I cannot decide for the IGP what he does. The IGP has an assessment of the situation. I mean, when you apply for a permit, it's an policing operational issue. They have to really assess the situation. Is the timing right? Is it justifiable? There are many things they look at in their assessment to give permits, and they give permits. That's a policing operational issue which I cannot comment on.
President Bassirou Diomaye Faye was here recently on a visit. What was the main purpose of his visit to the Gambia?
Well, we cannot.
Neither of them spoke to the press.
No, obviously. I mean, in diplomacy, this is very normal.
And you never issue any press release, which you are very good at, as far as your ministry is
in diplomacy, it is normal that when two heads of states meet, sometimes a decision is made whether it should be what they discuss is for public consumption or not for public consumption. In this case, it was decided that it is not for public consumption because some of the things that can be discussed might be sensitive, and it's not for public consumption, and we should accept it as
so. What happened to the access to information law?
This has nothing to do with, no, this has nothing to do with access. Access to information law deals with public information in public offices. This is two heads of state in a diplomatic meeting, with a working visit. They are not bound to really disclose what they discuss. This happens all over the world because some of the things they discuss can be sensitive. So therefore, they are not bound.
Sensitive as in what?
Like I said, I don't even know what they discussed. So I cannot tell you. But I can tell you it was a tete-a-tete between two heads of state that meet to discuss issues that has to do with both countries, and it is not an obligation for them to disclose that to the public. This is very common in diplomacy.
This evening, there was a press release, the suspension of national IDs and driver's license. Why has the government decided to temporarily suspend the issuance of national ID and
because
driver's
license? We are starting to implement the concession with margins. The company that successfully produced the Ghana card to make sure that every Gambian has an ID card, and that project is starting very soon. Therefore, we are suspending this to make sure we start that project so that every Gambian has an ID card, where now those with ID cards that are valid will not pay, they'll get free ID cards, and you will not pay extra for your ID card. And this also will go with what they call the electronic e-ID card, digital ID cards as well. Now we are moving into a transition where now we are going to make sure that every Gambian who's eligible to get an ID card gets an ID card. And now the challenges we are facing with ID cards, now it's a thing of the past. We are turning a new page, a fresh page in terms of ID card issuance. That is why we are suspending this for now, so that we can start this new concession with margins that every government can now get an ID card.
So what happens to those who have applied already? Are they going to make another payment? Or?
No.
Okay.
Once you have a valid ID card, they'll give you your ID card.
Okay.
But
so how long is the suspense expected to last? And
no, the 29th of June will start the issuance. That's based on the press release, if I understand it right. We'll start issuing ID cards to Gambians, and very soon it's a thing of the past. We've already solved that problem now. Before, we know there were challenges when there was a transition from the previous concessionaire to the new one, and the police and the immigration took over. There are challenges, but now these challenges have been resolved. We have a concession with a very serious company from Ghana, and very soon Isaac.
Why margins? I know 3 companies were shortlisted for this project. How did you reach the decision to identify margin?
There are procedures, procurement procedures, and the most financially responsive is the one who wins the contract. And these are procedures that are laid down, which are very rigid. Margins was the most financially responsive, and they were the ones that, after the evaluation, turned out to be the best company to be able to deliver. So therefore, it was given to them.
The resignation of the CDS, Lieutenant General Mohamed O.A. Cham, is, as we speak, one of the most consequential developments in secret sector reform in recent years. Did he resign voluntarily, or he was asked to step aside?
And what did his letter say?
He's resigning.
Exactly. I think that is what we all know, that he resigned. What that shows is that in President Adama Barrow's government, President Barrow is serious in fighting corruption, and all allegations of corruption are taken very seriously. We are not accusing the CDS of corruption. Still, there is no evidence yet. That is why the President has established a board of inquiry to investigate into these allegations. And I think it would be improper for us to further comment on this issue as long as the board of inquiry is ongoing. Remember, all the things said against the CDS are still allegations until proven otherwise. And the presumption of innocence also tells us that in Gambian legal context, that all allegations, anybody who is alleged to have committed a particular offense is innocent until proven guilty. Now, these are allegations, not proven yet. However, the allegations were so serious, it would really make his position untenable if he had to stay there because of the sensitive nature of his role. Therefore, he resigned to give way, and the President has instituted a board of inquiry to investigate on these allegations.
What's the timeline?
Well, I don't know the timeline. I cannot speak on the timeline. What is important is that there's a board of inquiry set up by the President to really investigate into these allegations. Like
So
I said, there are still allegations.
If wrongdoing is established, can we expect prosecution regardless
Well,
of
it
his
depends
rank?
on, I cannot tell that, I cannot preempt what the recommendations of the Board of Inquiry will be. What I know is that he resigned, and then the President has instituted the Board of Inquiry to investigate into the allegations, and it must be put with emphasis that these are still allegations which are yet to be proven.
So when are we going to have a fully appointed CDS? Because when we have now, government is just acting.
Well, that is the job of the President to do that. He is the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed and Security Forces.
Last week, internet blackout, last Thursday, which actually left only QCell up and running.
And we thank them for that.
So what exactly happened, Doc? What happened?
Well, actually, there was an electricity failure at the Ace landing station in Bruceby. It was a short problem. It was resolved after a couple of hours. These things happen all over the world. Sometimes there can be hiccups, technical hiccups, that can render critical infrastructure paralysis. And in this case, it was the electricity supply system at the Ace landing station in Bruceby which had an issue. Therefore, the system went down, but it was quickly resolved. We deployed all the resources that we have, and with support from the GSM operators as well.
What kind of resources?
Support from the GSM operators, all the GSM operators, all the stakeholders were there on site to make sure they work hard to restore communications again, because communications is critical infrastructure, and we took it very seriously.
Are you telling us there is no backup power at the Ace
There
station?
is backup power, but sometimes backup powers can also fail. Like I said, technical issues are technical issues. You can have backup generator, light goes off, you go to start the generator, it won't start. You still have backup power, but it won't start. These are technical. What is important is that it took place, we resolved it very quickly.
So what lesson has the government learned from this? Like I said, only QCell was up and running.
No, what we've also done is that we've taken extra measures, and the minister made this very clear to you when you interviewed the President, that now the President has taken a decision and requested for NAWEC to give 24-hour uninterrupted electricity to the East landing station in Bruceby, so that power will not go off there anymore, as one of the measures to really avoid a similar situation.
Like the minister, your colleague said, the Minister of Communications, at the start of the liberalization, which according to the chairman of the Q group is not just limited to QCell, but is limited to the entire sector. There were resistance at the beginning. Some were saying, why should you give QCell to have fiber? When you look at what happened that day and seeing that QCell was up and running, otherwise the entire country would have been down. When you sit back and look at that, what comes to your mind?
No, like I said, I cannot really speak to that.
Okay.
What is important is that it's always good to have alternatives.
But you are the government's
minister. What I'm saying,
you have liberty and then to speak on
but
everything.
some things are technical in nature, and they are sector specific, and therefore it's very difficult for me to really comment in detail on those issues. What is important is that there was an issue at the Ace landing station in Bruceby, and the issue was quickly resolved.
The proposed media regulations actually generated one of the strongest media backlashes since 2017. Were you surprised by the reaction?
It wasn't the backlash. What makes it a backlash?
Because the media came out and said, Doctor, no, we are not going to accept this regulation.
Yeah, but that is their view. Does it make it a backlash?
Were you surprised by the reaction?
Well, I wasn't surprised by the reaction, obviously. I mean, always when reforms happen, some people are not happy with those reforms because some people want to operate in a space which is free. And when you bring reforms, always go with such challenges. All reforms across the world can be unpopular because particularly if there are reforms in new territory. So we're not surprised that some people will feel uncomfortable if we want to bring certain media reforms. And these reforms are new reforms which we think are necessary.
The Gambia Bar Association, as we speak, is facilitating discussions. Where
yes, we are discussing, we are looking at the issues. Like I said, we've always wanted the stakeholders to take part in the process. For one reason or the other, that did not happen. Our wish was to make sure that any regulations we bring as part of our reforms is something which has consensus. It didn't happen. There was miscommunication, and miscommunication happened. This is normally anywhere in the world. When you want to bring reform, sometimes there could be pushback. But when we sit and discuss, and we're able to justify our positions, we're able to make sure that we have consensus and move on. I have no doubt that with the current discussions going on, spearheaded by the Gambia Bar Association, we'll have consensus on some of the critical and contentious issues. We'll find common ground, and there'll be convergence on those issues, and we'll pass our regulation. Our regulation is meant to ensure that the media is free and vibrant and protected, that the public is protected, particularly public dignity, but also the state functions in a manner in which it allows the media to operate freely without any harassment.
Which provisions is your ministry prepared to revise?
Like I said, one of the provisions that we have even revised after having the first consultations was the registration of journalists. We realized that that was our sticking point, which was a bit unpopular, and we were ready to drop that. The purpose was not to, you see, there was a difference between accreditation and registration. Our aim was not to accredit. Our aim was to register, have journalists in a registry, so that we know that CEESAY works for QTV, which is, that's all we want, to build a registry of journalists. But if people perceive that as something which has to do with accreditation, it created some kind of noise, we dropped that. But what is important is that now, when we were making, the media is currently regulated in the Gambia. I think that should be clear. Yeah. Because today you cannot open a TV station without having to go through the necessary procedures of a TV station to be licensed, and you have licensing obligations. You cannot open a radio station or a newspaper without having to go through certain procedures to have licensing obligations. Now, when we are doing those regulations, there was no new media. Now, new media has proliferated. Today, over 1 million Gambians are online, and they get their news online. You go online, you see lots of online media. That's a proliferation of online media, hundreds of them. Who's regulating them? Who's ensuring that they go by the dictates of the law, that the privacy of citizens are protected, dignity is protected? There is no regulation, and they operate in the gray area, and they should be brought under some form of regulation.
There's a code of conduct that's guiding all practicing journalists, because the
code of conduct for journalists
is not enforceable. We actually tell people, and even without the code of conduct, there are already laws that actually, I mean, regulate how journalists should behave. Let me give an example. If I come on QTV and say certain allegations that I cannot substantiate, you have the right to take me to court and say, you made these allegations against me.
Let me give an example today.
So that law already exists.
No, those laws are not enforceable in the gray zone, particularly with regards to online media. Today, QTV has an address. Yeah. They are registered and they are licensed, and they have licensing obligations. They violate those laws. You can take action by following procedures to revoke license or to make sure that you hold people accountable. What about someone who calls his media house Aliu Online Media? You don't even know who he is. You don't even know where he is. Sits in his room and puts somebody's picture and face on his screen and start making serious false accusations against, destroying people's lives. Stabbing someone with a knife is even better because you can heal. But there are things that they say against you which are lies and misinformation people because they have an agenda. Who holds them accountable for those actions? No, but there is no accountability. But there's accountability for QTV, for Star TV, for GRT, because you have an address, you are registered, you have obligations. What about someone who sits in his corner, calls himself whatever online media, and start doing things and insulting people and making accusations and lying against people? Who holds them accountable? There's no accountability. What we want to make sure that is that online media also comes under some form of regulation, so we can be able to hold them accountable for their actions or inactions. It's very simple.
But most of these key online platforms, the Fatu networks, the Kerfatus, you know who own these media platforms.
Yeah, but they're not the only ones. But they're also outside of regulation. But they're not the only ones. Are they the only ones today serving the Gambian public in terms of news and current affairs? No. There are hundreds of them out there. We don't even know who is behind them. We don't know who they are. It's a problem. Because what is happening is they don't know what, because they're serving the public with information which is poor. Today, if you allow a situation where anybody can open a pharmacy without being registered, you kill the public. Information is as key as healthcare, as education, because it informs the public. And you have people who now sit and open this online media to go after people, insult them, destroy their families, destroy their lives. What comes out of it? Nothing.
But the fear here is, Doc, it's not as if, okay, the media or the GPU is against, setting standards of professionalism. The fear that most people have here is about censorship, censoring people who might not be at liberty to express their views because they're afraid, okay, if I say this thing, the next minute they can
anybody who knows this government, since President Barrow came to power, there has not been any instance of censorship in this country. Where should we start now? What interest do we have in making we don't say censor? We are not. I mean, listen, like I said, there are registered media houses in this country. Is there any censorship? No. What we want is standards. Now, if we sit, I understand the problem, the concerns of GPU. That is why once we sit as a as stakeholders, we'll resolve the issue. We don't have an issue with that. We'll resolve it. We've started very well, and I think we'll resolve the issue.
How did you feel by the boycott?
I mean, there was no. I mean, there was no boycott. We didn't feel
there was boycott.
No, what I'm saying is that it was negligible. The boycott was non-impactful.
Really?
It had no impact because of course, yes, we were having our program. Media houses were coming to our programs. I mean, so those who felt that they did the boycott. And
but most of the media houses that came, doctor, they are obliged to be there. They are under contract with government.
No, there is no contract right now with any media house, and they came to the.
I understand the contract has been renewed again.
There is no contract. We have not renewed any contract. That is false.
So why did we have just those key media houses there? Most of the onlines were
because they refused to be part of the boycott, because the boycott was unnecessary and it was uncalled for. How can a serious journalist really do a boycott? Journalism is too sacred, too important a profession than to boycott just because that's disagreement on some minor issue.
So how do you justify your statement saying that you prefer 8 quality media houses to hundreds who only gather 1 likes and
but that's the fact.
How did you feel by saying that as a minister, doctor?
Look. That is the fact. There are media houses who cannot even garner 1 comment on 1 like, and they are shouting about boycott. Boycott who? Boycott what? Media houses are supposed to serve the public. You cannot have an issue with a minister and you want to deprive the public of information. That is not right. What is important is that, look, we didn't feel the boycott. It was unimpactful at all because the media houses were coming to our programs and we are still informing the public. So for me, the boycott wasn't important.
Do you regret that statement you made?
I will never regret that statement. And that is the fact. And you see some media houses who, in fact, those who make the most noise are those who have only 1 like and 1 followers on Facebook. And they call themselves media houses. They are not serious media houses. Today in the Gambia today, who is not a journalist? Who? What are the standards there? Anybody can just wake up in the morning and hold a mic and call himself a journalist and start interviewing people. It destroys countries because information is power. Who is a journalist? How do we differentiate? Other countries today, even in our closest neighbor here, there are standards and qualifications you must have to become a journalist. These are set. You cannot just wake up in the morning, you just take your mic, you go around interviewing people. I'm a journalist. What makes you a journalist? What is your qualification as a journalist? What makes you a journalist? It's like anybody will come and say, I'm a nurse. You start injecting people, killing people. Or I'm a teacher. There are professions that you need they are specialized. Journalism, nursing, in medical sector, teachers. These should be trained and be qualified to be journalists because these are specialized trades. But in the Gambia today, who is a journalist? Even comedians can wake up in the morning and call themselves journalists. And that is a problem in this country.
Who are these comedians?
What I'm saying, there are people who are comedians, who do comedy. Fine, let them stay in their lane as comedians. They cannot translate into say they are journalists. And when something happens...
But these are some of the people that you are using to promote, to show the developments happening in this country.
That's the content creators are not journalists. These are content creators, they can be content creators. Journalism is a specialized, you are a journalist, you know what I'm talking about. You need to be trained to be a journalist. And in the Gambia, there are no standards. Anybody can wake up in the morning and call himself a journalist. And we need to set those standards. It's not right. It happens nowhere in the world today as we speak. Gambia is the only country where anybody can just wake up in the morning without any training and calls himself a journalist.
Do you also regret the comment you made on record when you said you enjoy when they boycott something like a validation of the regulation? Do you regret and do you have any apology to make?
Well, I never used the word enjoy.
Okay.
I said we like when they boycott.
Any regret?
Why would I regret it? I said it.
Isn't that a sign of arrogance, doctor? When people heard it, they were like, doctor, when you hear him speak, you see like arrogance and all those things. Are you really arrogant, doctor?
Well, you know what is arrogance? When people boycott. That is arrogance. When people boycott, I never boycott. That is arrogance, when people boycott. Now, me expressing my view to say that, well, when they boycott, we like it. It's sarcastic, and people shouldn't be sarcastic.
Doctor,
it was a sarcastic statement.
Will you continue saying this and defending the government in this manner if you are removed tomorrow as Minister of Information?
What do you mean?
If you are removed tomorrow as Minister, will you continue defending the government and, of course, saying this?
Saying what?
What you are saying right now.
Like what?
Yeah, like, you enjoy it when the media boycotts and
No, I never said enjoy. It's not put into correct. I never said I enjoy. What I'm saying is that everybody speaks in their private moments sarcastically. Yeah? It was brought to my attention that media houses has boycotted the event, which is a very important event, an event which calls the media to come for us to sit and discuss a particular regulation which affects them and affects everybody. And I was made to understand that they boycotted it. I said, well, in a sarcastic manner, it's good when they boycott. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that it's not my position as a minister and as a citizen. It was made in a very sarcastic manner, and it should not reflect how I think about the media. Like I said, I respect the media. I see the media as a very critical partner to government, and I enjoy working with the media. That is why everything I'm doing today is making sure I empower the media through education, through skills, and through exposure. That is why when I get opportunities, I give it to the media. Yeah. I don't give it to my office alone. Yeah. Recently, you've seen, we've sent over 20 people to China to expose them. On this are media. In fact, some media that have even boycotted us, we've even sent them. So what I'm saying is that, look, what I say in that private moment, in a very sarcastic, but doesn't reflect what I think about the media. I respect the media. I know the power of the media. I know how important the media is for promoting our democracy.
It's good that
so that is why when we came to power, we've seen that what we've done is that we've created a platform where we can work with the media. It doesn't change my view of the media. I still respect the media, I love the media, and I see you as a critical partner.
It's good that you mentioned the China trips. I told someone jokingly that under the current minister, most of my colleagues have not experienced flying because of the China trips coming through your ministry. How are journalists selected for this?
So what happened is that when we get a request to nominate, we look at the different media houses. Okay. We give to print, we give to TV, radio, community radio, and Arabic media as well, and also content creators. So we make sure that we have a list. Last year, those who went will not go this year, we give it to something new. So that is what we do. So we sit at the office and say, look, last year, for example, QTV were not part of the beneficiaries. This year, we give you. Star TV wasn't last year. This year, we give them. And we give some content creators. Last year, Paradise went. So that's what we try to spread it in a manner in which everybody benefits. But like I said, one of my major preoccupations is to empower the media, to ensure that they are well equipped to be able to do the job. I see the media as a friend and as a partner. And I don't want to have any animosity or acrimony between me and the media.
Who makes the final decision as far as this selection is concerned? Who identify who should come from which media house?
Well, the ministry sits, both myself and the PS sits and they say and then do that decision as the ministry.
So do you just sit and say, oh, media Y, please take Mr. X?
Yeah, well, no, we look at so many things. We look at partnership, we look at whether you've gone before, we look at what you are doing. We look at so many things. We just want to make sure that there is wide representation and make sure that all the media houses benefit. Many radio stations have benefited, community radios have been there, Arabic radios were there last year, TV stations, newspapers. So we try to, even commercial radio, so we try to spread it as best as possible. So that is what we do. We don't just repeat it. Those who went last year are not the ones that are going this year.
So how do you gauge the impact of these seminars when they return back home?
Well,
you just send them, go enjoy China, see beautiful China, come back, and then
I mean, they give us feedback. Okay. These are trainings. They are not just excursions. They are trainings. They go for trainings in particular fields. But also, depending on the theme of the training, we also choose based on that. For example, if they say this for us about production or content creation, we know exactly who to focus on. So that's what we do. So the theme of the training also determines who we send as well.
How do you respond to people who perceive this, selection as being politicized and all those things?
Yeah,
especially in most institutions, people assume sometimes they are being dropped. There's that nepotism in the way. No. Maybe not from your office directly, but maybe at most of these institutional level.
Well, I cannot speak for those institutions.
But do you think it is right?
As far as our offices are concerned, there is no nepotism. There is no politicization. We give it to people who deserve it. We give it to particularly young women. If you look at the trips, most of them are women. We try to empower the media and to give them opportunities for these trainings, and we thank the Chinese government for this opportunity. Xi Jinping has declared 2026 as a people to people exchange year. And I think a lot of Gambians, last year 1,000 Gambians went to China to go and see how China has developed, Chinese culture, Chinese heritage, and Chinese development trajectory. And last year, in fact, when we sent someone from one of the online TV stations, when they came back, they really did a lot to transform that TV station. And they really thanked the ministry for sending them.
I was there last year myself, courtesy of the embassy direct, not from your ministry, by the way. So let me make that clear. But Doc, we're running out of time. What issue keeps you awake at night as minister?
Now?
Yeah.
Now, as we speak?
Any moment.
No, nothing.
Like you sleep at night and wake up and say,
this. For me, what is important is the president to deliver to the Gambian people. He was voted by 52% of Gambians to deliver certain services to them, and these are basic services. And he has made a pledge to deliver these services: water, electricity, roads, support for farmers, women empowerment, jobs for young people. And we've seen progress in all these fronts. The indicators tell us that. Recently, GBOS study has told us that 163,000 Gambians have been absorbed into the economy, both informal and formal. The absorption is high. The president pledged 150,000 jobs to be created in the economy within 6 years. It's been 163,000, so 13,000 more. We've built more roads than ever before. We've provided more water than ever before. And the water projects that are coming, like the WASIP project, bringing water to over 1 million urban Gambians. We've built more roads. We've supported more farmers in both fertilizer and also buying their groundnuts. We've built more classrooms and more schools. We've made more investments in healthcare. We've made more investments in women empowerment. We've subsidized fuel, even though the global oil shocks could have had a serious impact on the lives and livelihoods of Gambians. Our subsidies had really cushioned that impact.
People are still considering parking their vehicles because of the...
No, but what I'm saying is that imagine if the government did not subsidize the 300 million in April, 150 in May, 150 in June. Imagine what would have happened to the price of fuel in our pumps. We subsidize energy with form of NAVEC. We subsidize for farmers. We make sure that young people get jobs. You made you go to UTG higher education. 60% of those are on government scholarship. The investments we've done there. So we've done a lot, considering the challenges, the COVID-19, the wars, the global economic downturn.
So is all this put together, is that why the former African Development Bank described President Barrow as a bankable president?
Of course, yes. And I think not only that, I think everybody across the continent has seen President Barrow as a shining example of...
I was surprised, hearing him, making all those praises on the president.
No, but it's not about praises. That is the reality. These are not praises. These are the realities. What the president has achieved in 7-8 years, no president has achieved that has undergone a transition. Not Rwanda, not South Africa, not Liberia, not Sierra Leone. None of them countries that has gone on a transition either from autocracy to democracy or from war to peace has achieved what the president has achieved in 7 years. It's not possible. It has never happened.
What's your prediction? December election, you said...
And remember all the indicators. Recently, Gambia is one of the 10 most prosperous countries in the continent. Gambia, the 4th safest country in the African continent. All the indicators are speaking for us. And I think all that will hand over President Barrow the victory in 2026, because what Gambia needs today is stability and certainty. We don't want risks, and I think Gambia is on a trajectory to unprecedented development and transformation. And I think the president is on course to deliver that, and I think it is incumbent on every government to work towards ensuring he is re-elected to continue the hard work.
Thank you so much, Dr. ISMAILA. Sister, thank you so much for coming on the program. The other day, someone saw us, together like, the assistant kundas allow them to settle their own stuff. But, thank you so much for coming on the program. Quite appreciated, Doctor. Well, viewers, with that, we bring an end to this week's edition of your weekly State of Affairs program. Do join us next week. Until then, bye-bye from me and the entire team.